So let's set the stage. You grew up Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of. Southern. I mean, in the Bible Belt, everybody's Christian, right? And so what did that look like, and how old, like as a little boy, putting on your Sunday's best, you had your one suit, right? Let's start there.
Yeah. Yeah, I was raised in the South where, Bible Belt, everybody, even if you didn't go to church, at least you respected it. On Sunday, all the stores were closed. There was just a couple of basic needs, a grocery store, but restaurants were closed. You couldn't go out to eat. It was respected that Sunday was God's day, even if you were not a Christian. I was raised in that environment, went to a small church that was maybe 80, 90 people for a long time, many, many years. Raised in that, went to a little Sunday school. Every Easter, my mom would take me to J.C. Penney's and buy me a new suit with a clip-on tie. And I looked the part. And go to Sunday school class and hear the Bible stories that I now use to talk about, to preach to people. Boy, you can never underestimate taking your children to church. That's an amazing thing. I had a fear of God. I respected God, but I don't know that I ever became a Christian as a little boy. I feared God in the sense that I didn't want to do bad things. But that was the groundwork for me, being raised in church, in an environment. The Bible was highly valued. Church was a high priority. And that was the groundwork that set the stage for me to become a Christian.
What about that quick caveat of this story of hearing the footsteps of your dad walking down as a little boy?
Yeah, my dad was, for the most part, a good dad. He tried hard, had a really great work ethic, worked really hard, and taught that to all three of us kids. But my mom was the spiritual one in the family, had a tender heart for God, and went to church weekly. And my dad would go periodically in respect to her for years. And I remember when I was maybe 11 or so, on a Sunday night, had Sunday morning and Sunday night church. On a Sunday night, I remember the pastor making a plea for people to come forward for prayer. And I kind of just, in my own little world, fiddling my thumbs or something, and I hear this loud, you could hear anybody walking down. It was a wooden floor. And I look up and it was my dad. I was just shocked. That's my dad. What's he doing? Why is he going up there? What's going on? And he's up there and he has his face in his hands and he's not losing control, but he was shedding tears. He was crying. I was kind of happy, fearful. I didn't know what that means. Church, it's a safe place to be crying, for heaven's sake. But man, what does that mean? Come to find out that he had been meeting with the pastor, and the pastor had been talking to him, and my dad was at a moment where he knew he needed to surrender his life, and that was the day he became a Christian.
How old were you at that time?
I was about 11, something like that.
And was there a identifiable shift you saw or conversation that was had at the home after?
Afterwards, yeah, it was pretty obvious. I don't know that our family actually said, hey, your dad got saved. That never happened. It was just like life changed. He wasn't that, he had smoking habit, drinking habit. It was very moderate, but those things, he just had zero desire. Those things just went to the wayside. He was at church every time the doors open. Rain or shine, if there was 3 people there, he was there. Everything changed. And as the years developed ahead of that, you'd find him, no one knew. He'd be out sitting in his recliner, reading the Bible with his eyes closed, kind of moving his lips. I knew he was praying. That was kind of his new life. It definitely changed, and our family felt that change, a good change.
And then we come to you being a teenager, which is, as they say, the years you really define your life and what you believe.
Right.
Could be late teens, early teens, but you're in high school and want to be in the cool crowd.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if it's uncommon. I wanted to be a cool guy. I admired the guys in the middle school especially, I was a young teenager, that were surfers. And I was in a surfing town, coastal town. And they just looked the part, the long hair, the dark tan, got the surfer clothes. And we weren't that wealthy, so I think I had a pair of Levi's, one pair, and a hang ten, little hang ten shirt, and I thought I was in. And then from middle school, going into high school, I mean, I just wanted to get out of the box. I wanted to have a girlfriend. I wanted to be popular. I wanted to be happy, and started making friends with the people. And next thing you know, I mean, I was in. But this is in the late 60s when my generation was experimenting with, common phrase, free love, a lot of sexual explosion, and a lot of drug abuse, drug addictions.
Was it like prevalent?
People
just smoking weed at school?
Smoking weed at school, on the way to school, during lunch break. That's all I did, but there were many of my friends that were really deep into some pretty heavy drugs. That was scary to me. But remember, I have these roots that are still nagging at me. I'm thankful for how I was raised, to respect God and His house and the Bible. Those things I never did not believe in. I stepped outside. I colored outside the lines looking for some sense of value. My value system was off. I just thought I would be happier if I had those friends and I did those things, and colored outside the line. But I didn't go deep. I'm thankful for how I was raised, and I'm thankful for people who pray. I didn't know they were praying, but they were praying for me. They knew that I was kind of outside the lines. I got involved in entry level, like marijuana and drinking, pretty intense party life. And that lasted for about a year and a half.
And you would go from partying Friday, Saturday night, and you would still be at church on a Sunday? Never missed church. That was not a discussion. My parents weren't hard-handed. I respected it. It's weird. Double life, that's me. I respected and valued my mother and father, would never want to hurt them. I wasn't a defiant teenager. I was just what's the term? I was not a defiant teenager. I was an experimenting teenager. I was trying to find my identity and value. So yeah, I'd party. My parents were really flexible. I used the family car. I'd be sometimes out 2, 3, 4 o'clock on Saturday. Slip in quietly. I don't know why they let me do it, but they still loved me. And I would wake up at whatever time and go to church. I didn't miss. Had to. So I would go there, same people I'd been raised around since I was a little boy. And I'd feel guilty a lot of times because I had a sensitive spirit, but I didn't change. But I didn't do this a long time. This lasted maybe a year and a half, 2 years. And then I don't remember what the circumstances were, but I started to feel just darkness. I felt like it was getting too dark. Some of my friends were really getting weird, and I felt unsafe. I started feeling discouraged and depressed. Girl I was dating, she was a prom queen kind of a thing, beautiful young lady. Her family loved me. It was in one sense it was a really great relationship. Another, it was not good. And I think we broke up or something. And I remember coming to church in September of 1971. Same thing I did every time. The night before, I'd gone out late partying. I'm sure I'd drank too much or something. I don't know what happened, but I was so discouraged. More than just having a bad day, just been growing. And on that day, I can still see it. I mean, raised in a small church with pews. I don't even know what the pastor was speaking on. Pastor Hall. I remember his name. And I just felt this compelling need to cry out to God. I'd never done it before. I just remember looking around, no one saw me. I just got on my knees, knelt down on that hard wooden bench and started sobbing. You know, when you get to a place where you are that hurt and that wounded, you don't care anymore. And that's where I was, just sobbing in the back. No one knew I was in the back. No one was in that area. And that's when I had a conversation with God, unlike any other time, as an adult. Hey, God, I've always thought it would be so boring to serve you and to be a Christian, and what I've seen of Christianity didn't seem that exciting to me. I wanted to have fun, but I've realized, how do I know?
I've never tried it. I do know this, what I am doing is horrible, and I'm discouraged and depressed. This is not good. I want my life to change. I don't know. I've done so many bad things. Could you please forgive me? And is there hope for me? It's something like that. The key was, how do I know? I've never tried. That was the trigger. And when I prayed that prayer, it's like someone reached into my soul and flipped the switch. In an instant, people talk about it. I'm not talking about it. I experienced it. I mean, it's like the peace of God that surpasses understanding the Bible talks about just flooded my whole being. And I just was plugged in. Joy, peace. Felt like it was the beginning of a new day. And I think I told my mom what had happened, and then that was no looking back. No looking back. Come to find out later that there was a couple people that were in the church, one couple in particular, that were pretty new in our church family, and God had brought them there. He was a salesman, a young family. The guy, he and his wife had been praying for me constantly, and I remember I would come with my parents before I had prayed that prayer. And on every Sunday, there's a large porch outside the front of the church, and people would gather there. And this lady, her name was Bobby Jean, this couple that cared about me, I'd come out the door, and she'd reach over, and she's kind of nervous. She'd be shaking, and Jerry McKinney. She'd grab my hand, and I'd feel like, please don't do this. I mean, I'd feel God on her, and she'd say, tears most weeks. God has a plan for your life. I'm praying for you. God has a plan. I got to go. Well, that day when I went out, I gave her a hug. And that family was one of the big keys, I think, to me becoming a Christian. If you are a Christian and you have people in your life, family or friends that you care about, you want them to become a Christian, never underestimate the power of your prayer and praying for someone to come to Christ. My pastor prayed, I know that. My mom was a big piece, but a big piece was this couple. They didn't have to do that. They constantly would greet me, constantly share their love for me. It was a pretty radical change.
What point in that story was the surfing story? Was that before that?
Yeah, before that.
And tell us that story.
Yeah, just before I became a Christian, I was a surfer, and so I was out with some buddies, and the surf was really, really high, and I lived in the Gulf Coast, so when there's not much of an ocean floor, so when there was a big surf, there was a huge riptide, always. And so we were out, and I paddled out and caught a couple waves, and there was a big set coming, and I looked back, and it's just like a wall, better take this one. So I paddled, and I got it, and I was riding, and I don't know what happened. I slipped off. And that's before we had leashes on the surfboard. So if you lost your surfboard, see you later, baby. And so the surfboard's gone. And I'm thinking, okay. So I'm swimming, and a full set of waves comes in, and they're huge. And I mean, it's like being in the dishwasher, or the washing machine. Just get Maytagged. Bam, bam, bam. I come up, and after fighting this for a couple minutes, I realized I was absolutely done. And fear hit my heart. I saw my life go before my eyes. I think I'm going to die. I'm getting so panicky, and I'm just barely keeping above water, and another wave, and it's washing over me. I'm drinking water. I'm panicking. I had friends, but it's so loud with the surf. I'm screaming at the top. I'm weeping and screaming. Please, nobody could hear me. And I literally had the thought, give up. I was going to die. I let go, and on my highest level of tippy toes, I touched a little sandbar. It shouldn't have been there. That was not the sandbar, but I touched one. And I was able to touch it enough, and there were no waves for a second, a minute maybe, and I'm able to catch my breath. If you catch your breath, you get a new burst of strength. And suddenly I look up, and my surfboard had stopped. That is absolutely impossible. It had stopped. I say miraculously. And it was a ways ahead, but it didn't move. So I quickly swam, somehow grabbed it. I had a new best friend. I hugged that surfboard big time. and paddled in and laid on the beach and wept. It was just a few weeks later that I became a Christian. This was all the focus of the prayers of people, this particular event, going through a difficult little, puppy love breakup with a girl at school. All these pieces God was using to work in my life. The prayers of all those people, I believe, brought me through that journey to get me to the place where I need to surrender to God.
Was there a moment in that surfing time did you cry out to God in that moment, or you even think to? You just
I did. That night, when I was there at that moment where on my tippy toes, I'm begging, I'm saying, God, I was hesitant because I understood. I believed in God. I wasn't an unbeliever. I was very respectful of God, Bible, church. I just didn't want to do it. And I'm having this conversation and I'm confused. God, I don't know if you can help me. I don't know if I want to be. I didn't even know how to talk to him, because what I was really trying to say is, I don't know that I'm ready to surrender my life to you, but could you please help me? Mm-hmm. And you can say what you want. And in my mind, it was absolutely God helping me. I mean, in my fanciful world of spiritual life, I believed there was an angel possibly stopping that surfboard, and that no way there's not a sandbar. I know sandbars, there was not one supposed to be there. Here I am today to tell the story that God redeemed me from that circumstance. And that was part of the springboard for me moving to the place where I was ready to really surrender my life to Jesus. And I did that in September of 1971, and there's not have been a day, never ever since, that I've gone back on that.
What was it like going to school and the change?
Oh, the change was immediate and bold. Went to school, and my closest friends, I told them what had happened. They didn't understand it. These are a bunch of radical, hippie, long-haired drug-outs. And I started taking this giant Bible someone had given me on the top of, I remember doing that really boldly. I wanted to put it on the top of my books and always set it on the top on the desk, making it real obvious, hoping someone would ask me. I helped start a Bible club on school, started inviting friends to church. Never looked back. I remember I was in this club of I forget the name of it now. I guess the Cool Guys Club. I don't know. Very well known. And I was the assistant leader of it. The guy that was leading it was one of my best friends, Talmage Luttrell. And I remember one of the first times I heard God speak to me about making some big change as a Christian, I felt like God spoke to me to let go of that club. And that meant embarrassment. That meant having to say what had happened, not being the cool guy anymore. But I remember meeting in Talmage's Camaro. He had a blue Camaro. He was the hot guy on campus. He was a cool guy, my best friend. Meeting in his car, and we're talking. I said, Talmage, I got to share something with you. He said, what's that, man? Anything, Jerry, anything? Man, we're left-handed brothers, man. We're both born in June, and we're both left-handed. It's a cool bonding kind of a guy thing. And he said, what is it? I said, well, I don't know how you're going to receive it. I'd become a Christian. I've surrendered my entire life to Jesus, and I have to get out of the club. He goes, no. I said, no, I have to. I'm sorry. I'm not talking about something small. My life radically changed. I'm not doing any of the things that I've done with you and others in the last number of years. Not judging anybody, but I got to change it. I thought he would. I didn't know what he would do. But he stopped. I kid you not. Here's this toughest guy on the campus, tears rolling down his cheeks, looking at me and said, you got it wrong. I so respect you for making that kind of decision. And I broke away and never went back. Still had those friends, still work with them, and a good number of them became Christians. Yeah, that was my early Christianity.